Hi, this is Adina again, here with Courage to be Curious. One of the other questions we often get is that we use this term a lot called productive curiosity. I mean, we've got courage to be curious in our title, and we'll talk more in another video about what do we mean by courage. But what do we mean by productive curiosity? We use this term a lot with our corporate clients in particular, where we work with leaders to teach them how to be productively curious in the workplace. So, and in this, we've actually developed a whole roadmap, productive curiosity roadmap. At a high level, being productively curious means that we're going to engage in inquiry. And that inquiry means that we have an openness and we have a receptivity and we're asking really powerful questions. It also means that we're skillfully directing those questionings, directing our listening to a goal in mind. Now, the goal in mind is not to convince somebody of something, and the goal in mind is not to make people do what it is we want them to do. A goal, a productively curious goal, might be to discover what is inhibiting somebody's motivation in the workplace. That's actually a really good goal. So we will set an intention, we will ask productively curious questions, we will really listen deeply if we want to understand, for example, what's inhibiting somebody's motivation in the workplace. So we have this roadmap. I've just given you a glimpse into some of the pieces of the roadmap that we work on with our corporate clients. The first part of the roadmap is to set an intention about what matters most in a given moment. Part of the roadmap is to being able to ask these really productively well constructed, super powerful, productively curious questions. A third part of our roadmap is to be able to elevate our listening to the place where we can hear not only the words people are saying, but what they actually mean by them and what their intentions are. Then we have a piece of our roadmap that is all about overcoming the myriad barriers that get in the way of the listening. Listening, yeah, we've all got ears and we hear stuff coming in all day long, but it doesn't mean that we are actually really listening deeply. And there are many things that get in the way, whether it's our own triggers, our own predetermined belief systems, it's our hunger, it's how quickly the clock is ticking when we need to get somewhere. There's a whole variety of barriers. We have many different categories of barriers that can get in the way. So how do we recognize and overcome those so that we can do the deep listening, the productive questioning? And then how do we come to the table with something like trying to understand someone's, what's infringing upon someone's motivation with a total willingness to accept how that person works and what might arise without super infusing the conversation with our predetermined notions of what we think the cause probably is. So this gives you a glimpse into what we mean by productive curiosity, our roadmap, and this can be applied beautifully in the workplace with leaders all the time and with people all the way down the line, and it can be applied in our lives, it can be applied in our relationships. And so you'll be hearing more about it. You'll be seeing some of the tools. And if you are part of a corporation that is thinking a lot about how people communicate with one another and how to create cultures of inclusivity where people really feel like they have voice and agency in meaningful ways, then reach out. Let's have a chat.